apart from it is the anterior pituitary gland. However, the posterior pituitary gland is representing by these bright structures as sagittal T1. This is the neurohypophysis and this is the adenohypophysis. And now, where is the midbrain? Yes, all this part is the brainstem, and this is the cerebellum, the fourth ventricle between the cerebellum and the brainstem, and the more proximal part from the brainstem is the midbrain. And posterior to it, there are the aqueduct of Sylvius, which connecting the third ventricle, CSF, with the fourth ventricle, CSF. Now, where is the mammary body or mammillary body? Yes, this is these projections anterior to the midbrain between the optic chiasm and this is between the optic chiasm, tuber cinerum and the midbrain is called the mammillary body. And now, where is the infundibulum? Yes, this one is the infundibulum, which connecting the posterior pituitary gland to the hypothalamus through this median eminence. Proton density weighted image, like this image of MRI axial imaging, it is the tissue with the higher concentrations or density of the protons. Like gray matter in this example, the gray matter have high concentration of the proton, so it appears the high signal in the proton density. If we are in musculoskeletal, the muscles have high concentrations of the protons and density, and this is meaning it appears the higher signal than the surrounding structure. So if we look for this image, this is the proton density weighted image. Why? Because the gray matter have high concentration of protons and appear the higher in the diagram. However, in the image, the cut image or the axial image of the T1 weighted imaging, as the subcutaneous fats appeared bright and the marrow fat in the tibia and the fibula appeared bright. Also, the cortex appeared dark signal or signal void. So this is the tibia and this is the fibula, and this is the anterior and this is the posterior. The posterior four ventricles, right lateral ventricles, left lateral ventricle, third and fourth ventricle. These ventricles have CSF connecting together by four connections, foramen of Monro between the third ventricle and lateral ventricle, aqueduct of Sylvius between, with a little bit concentrations till the end of the video, and I promise you that we are all together will build up MRI signal step by step. What is the radio frequency pulse? This is the first step for building MRI signal. The rule of the radio frequency pulse is excitations of the protons, which aligned now in the directions of the main magnetic field in this z-axis, and these excitations lead to movement of these directions in this xy plane to be in the transverse magnetizations, forming an angle. This angle, which forms between the new alignment of the protons and the main directions of the magnetic field, is called the flip angle, and according to the flip angle, the sequence of MRI is built. Sometimes this angle in these situations is called 90-degree pulse, because it representing 90-degree orientations of the protons after excitation by radio frequency pulse. So the flip angle or FA determines how much net magnetization vector is rotated towards the XY plane. The next, or at the same time, there are another effect of the radio frequency pulse rather than these transverse magnetizations of the protons and alignment in this direction. The other effect is the spinning. However, in the distal esophagus there are ring or line here. These lines, lucent lines, or these impressions or contractions is called the B line. The B line is due to junctions between the columnar epithelium of the stomach and the stratified squamous epithelium of the esophagus. The junction between these two structures making a ring like this, which is called P ring. Sometimes it referred to as a line. This line is called Z line. this ring should be more than 2 centimeters or 20 millimeters to consider it as an anatomical variant, because if less than this can cause obstruction of the esophagus and cause dysphagia. So the B ring is anatomical variant if more than 2 centimeter. However, the line is called the Z line due to the contaminations between, or the connections between the two types of epitheliums is not appeared in a linear form but in zigzag form, so Z coming from zigzag, so it is called the Z line. These lines is anatomical variant as I mentioned. However, if it causing narrowing or dysphagia, associated with dysphagia, and this narrowing is between 13 to 20 millimeter of the esophagus, so at that time it is called Chatazky ring. Chatazky ring is pathological structure or pathological description, not like B ring, which is the proximal aspect and short head in the distal aspect. So the biceps muscle, because I know now I am in the proximal aspect, there are gluteus muscle, there are a medial aspect of the pelvis still appearing, so this referring to a long head of the biceps femoris muscle. The one which in between is the tendinosus, so this is the semi-tendinosus muscle. However, the most medial one from the posterior compartment group is the semi-membranosus muscle. So this is the three muscles forming the posterior aspect or posterior compartment muscle, and these three muscles, biceps femoris, semi-tendinosus, semi-membranosus, is called the hamstring muscle. As I mentioned before, the anterior and medial compartment are separated by a neurovascular bundle, and medial compartment, posterior compartment, there are another neurovascular bundle which appearing here. That small muscle near the fibula, laterally. However, the flexor hallucis longus, referring to the muscle attached to the medial aspect of the leg or near the tibia, just attached to the tibia, because hallucis meaning big toe and big toe is medial, so the muscle which attached to the tibia directly or adjacent to the tibia is the flexor hallucis longus, and the other point of triangle referring to the flexor digitorum longus, and the large muscle in the posteromedial aspect between tibia and fibula is referring to tibialis posterior muscle. What about the anterior triangle? Anterior triangle is facing to that triangle as a mirror image, and the large muscles in the lateral aspect and anterior is referring to the tibialis anterior, and excite the protons and transfer it from these longitudinal magnetizations to these transverse XY magnetizations and form an angle. This angle is called the flip angle, and this is the first one for affecting MRI signal, first MRI parameter. And also the other effect of radio frequency pulse is the in phase of the proton and resonance formation. After removal of the radio frequency pulse, there are two issues occurs: realignment of the protons to the Z axis and also dephasing of the spinning protons. This dephasing, we followed it by another MRI pulse 180 degree before reaching to the main started point to re-excite it again, and this is called protons now in phase again and called the rephase status. And then switched it off again. After switching it off, the protons again dephase. However, it causing magnetizations of the aqueous produced from this process. The time from the 90 degree pulse until the aqueous productions is called echo time. And in the middle of this echo time, the excitations again by 180 degree pulse can be occurred to accentuate this echo and the signal. However, the time starting from between the two 90 degree radio frequency pulse, this is the repetition of the pulse, is called repetition time or TR. So we have now three factors: TR, TE, and FA, and these parameters, MRI parameters, according the posterior clonoid process and the wall of the bony component of the sella turcica is composed from these dorsum celli. The dorsum celli with the clivus, this part from the bones forming the base of the occipital bone. Muscle is called the masticator space. And this one which involving the vessels in the neck, common carotid artery and internal jugular veins with surrounding lymph nodes is called the carotid space. What about this lateral space which is showing the parotid gland here with its vessels and lymph node also is called the parotid space. So now this is the vertebra and the surrounding area of the vertebra is called the perivertebral space. However, the most posterior space in the neck is called the posterior cervical space, which is connecting the main duct of the pancreas directly through the minor papilla of the second part of the duodenum. And the other duct of the ventral portion of the pancreas is drained also at the major papilla of the duodenum. So these separations is leading to disease which is called pancreatic divism. Pancreatic divism meaning separate opening of the duct of Santorini which drains most of the pancreatic juice within the duodenum through that minor papilla. That is what can cause obstruction of the duct and dilatations and also can lead to pancreatitis as we see here in that CT image due to fat stranding surrounding to the pancreas. It also can cause recurrent pancreatitis in young age. So duct of Santorini when opened separately within the duodenum is called pancreatic divism. So pancreatic divism meaning it results from the failure of the fusion of the dorsal and the ventral pancreatic and legs. As a result, the dorsal pancreatic duct of Santorini drains most of the pancreatic done by the X-ray view without CT. As you see here, the trachea is divided into the left main bronchus and right main bronchus. Then the left main bronchus have another subdivisions. But if we have any lesion in the lung here, so we cannot discriminate it by the segments. So we can imagine a line at the suprahilar regions and another lines in the infrahilar regions, and then there are 3 segments in the lung in every side, in each side. So the upper segment and middle lung zone and the lower lung zone. I will call them zones, not segments, in the frontal chest radiograph. So if I have a lesions here, these lesions in the right middle zone, I can describe it as a parahilar locations. However, the yellow one is representing an right upper loop segment as a locations, and this one in the left upper loop, orange one, and can add also paramediastinal in location, and this one in the peripheral lung or